Hi there and welcome to another video. Thank you for tuning in. Hi there and welcome to another success story. Today we've got Sally, who is a moderator at the Steak and Butter Gang and soon to be a coach there. So hi, Sally.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I will be honest, when you sent me the before and after pictures, because I've only ever seen you as an after, I couldn't believe the before pictures. And when we do the final cut, there will be behind me so people can see, while I was really shocked. So I always start with the same question. What made you become carnivore?
Well, I had done keto for a long time. But I was just always, jumping on, jumping off, the sugar addiction just had a really good hold on me. But I was given a diagnosis a couple of years ago of Hashimoto. And that kind of shook me because when you have one autoimmune, you tend to develop more and more and more. And I have clients like that. So I'm just like, no, that is not going to be me. And so I started really researching what works for people. And I was told it's for life. And I had other conditions too. I just didn't understand that you could heal them like with food. And I was hypokalemic and fatty liver. I mean, you name it. I had everything going on. And so in my research, I found other people with Hashimoto. And then as I'm talking to them, I'm realizing they're telling me, yeah, they got rid of it. And I'm like, you can get rid of it? And I'm like, okay, what did you do? And so they told me they did carnivore, no dairy, because dairy would inhibit the healing process. So I'm like, carnivore, okay. And then I'm like, there's no way, I barely eat meat. I'm like, never be able to do this. And plus I was so, controlled by sugar that it was a tough way to think. But every person I talked to that had gotten rid of it said it was carnivore. And so I'm like, okay, I need to learn more about this. I was listening to Dr. Berry, Dr. Shafee, there's another one there. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. And the more I learned, the more I became convinced that I could get rid of this. And I was determined to get rid of it. And so I jumped in. I was kind of doing ketovore. It was like carnivore with pickles. I still had pickles in there. I hadn't completely gotten rid of the artificial sweeteners. So I went 8 months, made a lot of progress in 8 months, and I lost it. It's like, it was last fall. And I went down a rabbit hole with sweeteners, which led to sugar. And it was a 2.5 month long binge. And come January of 22, I was like, no, I can never have anything sweet again. And I went in 100% carnivore and no dairy. Everything was pure and nothing sweet at all. No sweeteners, nothing that even remotely tasted sweet. And that is when everything changed for me. And I've been all in ever since. And it's like Hashimoto's almost gone. That's blowing my mind, but it's almost gone. And the sugar addiction is, I want to say controlled. I can't ever say it will ever be gone because I don't think addiction can ever be gone. But it's not part of my world anymore. It does not control me. The binge eating stopped because that was horrific. Fatty liver's gone. All my numbers across the board for everything, cholesterol, everything is excellent. And I believe even my hypothyroid is gone. It's like everything's in normal range. But the Hashimoto's still there. And it's on its way out though. So I'm pretty sure, maybe over the next year or so. It's a long haul beast. So.
Well, so how old are you, Sally?
I am 60 now.
And when did you first have issues then? When did you have problems with eating and cravings? When did that start?
The sugar when I was a kid, it wasn't an issue then though, because I really didn't care much about eating. But what I did eat was sweet. It's like, and I didn't have, my parents were divorced. I kind of lived my life and But I just ate sweet things, and they, as I got older in my 20s and 30s is when it got bad, because the only way I knew to cope or to bury the emotions I was feeling was with sugar. And I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. I just knew that I felt better when I ate those things. And it was only for a moment, of course, and then the moment's gone, and then you have to eat more. But yeah, I would live on sugar for months at a time with literally no protein. And I destroyed my immune system.
Yes. So when did you first start having problems, whether they were health or weight problems? When did that start to be obvious to you there was something up?
I'd always been dieting because I always thought just 20 pounds was too much. But I want to say early 40s, because I had dropped 100 pounds then. I had gotten it off. I was doing keto, and I was feeling great. But the addictive part, it's like I'd always go down and then I'd be right back up. I never stayed down. I just always went right back up and then down and then up, and it just wasn't nice. But I would say 40s was mid 30s to mid 40s was when it all started, like really started, the yo-yoing, the binging really bad. I mean, the process I would go through in a grocery store, I literally got an addiction therapist to help me. And she told me that my mind process was exactly the same of a drug addict. And so then she began to understand sugar addiction. And she helped quite a bit.
So the pictures you sent me, was that your heaviest? And can you remember what your heaviest was?
My heaviest was 311, and those pictures were not quite at 311. They were close. They might have been around 300.
And what are you now?
Right now, I got to Wonderland at 199. So I still have about 50 to go. I'm going to follow what my body wants to do, but I know I still have about, 50 to go before I will be at what I consider optimal health, but I am going to, kind of follow what my body wants to do.
And what's been the biggest difference between keto and carnivore?
Keto was too much thinking. It was way too much thinking. I mean, counting the carbs and then playing the mind game with the numbers of the carbs. It's like, because I still had the sweeteners in. So instead of it being pure and being just vegetable carbs, it was like my carb count was an excuse for me to have the artificial stuff. That's where I used my carbs, and it didn't help. It just didn't. I was like on a hamster wheel. So with carnivore, I don't count a thing. I don't measure anything. I don't do macros. I don't, none of it. I just eat when I'm hungry, and I eat until I'm full. And most of the time it's like once every other day, because I'm just not all that hungry. So I incorporate the fasting because that's been a huge part of my healing process cellularly.
And what do you tend to eat then?
I started off a lot in the beginning because I really loved hamburger. So I would make these 1 pound burger patties, and I would just cook them till they were, medium, and then eat them. And so it's either hamburger or ribeye. I love ribeye. I did just make a pork belly yesterday for the first time ever, and I'm trying that. It's okay. I like the fat part of it. So I will try other things, but I pretty much stick to beef. I feel better with beef and more satiated with beef.
So we're going to ask a question now, because the thyroid issue would have definitely interested a fair few people. How do you know that Hashimoto's is going? What's changing in your life so you're doing the right thing in regard to your thyroid health?
Well, I never considered, when I was diagnosed, I knew I had a weight problem. I knew my hair had been falling out, and I knew my skin was rapidly drying, like rapidly. I never even wore lotion my whole life. And all of a sudden I'm packing on lotion and it's not enough. So I knew that it was an issue then, but I didn't consider myself as having Hashimoto issues. I knew those were, but so many people with it and thyroid issues had pain and all these other things going on. And I had those things, but I never connected them to my thyroid. And I connected them to inflammation, which I'm sure was a huge part of it. Now, the first thing I did was did blood work. I wanted to know what my numbers were in regards to my thyroid and Hashimoto, because I knew if I was going into this, I wanted to know if I was helping or hurting my condition, because I knew nothing about carnivore and I really didn't know a whole lot about Hashimoto at the time. So I researched. They only had done a few thyroid things. They tried to put me on levothyroxine because my TSH went up. That was it. That's all they looked at. And it made my body go wild. I mean, my body was like an oven 24/7. And when I researched it after that, I was like, what is going on? And realized it was a hormone. I was like, I don't need hormone stuff. I don't even have menopausal symptoms. All of a sudden I'm taking a pill that's giving me menopausal symptoms. I'm like, hell no. And so I stopped it immediately. It had only been maybe a week or two. And I stopped it. Everything went back to normal. And so I really researched all of this. And it said, if for a thyroid, you have to check this, and this. And I went, oh my God. I said, I need to know my T3 is, my T4, free T3, free T4, reverse T3. Besides the TSH, I needed to know what these other things were. And it said that if you have just hypothyroid, you don't necessarily need medication. It's like you can fix this nutritionally. But if you have Hashimoto, which I had no idea, if you have Hashimoto, then you have to do something proactive with it. And so I told my doctor, I says, I want to be tested for Hashimoto. So she tested the TPO antibodies and the TG antibodies. I didn't expect to have them. I had them both. They were up, all it said was over 1,000. And so at that point, I was like, okay, what do I need to do here? But I knew I wasn't going to go back on levothyroxine. And the reason it made me nuts was because I didn't have a T4 problem. I had a T3 problem. And that's a T4 medicine. And so I knew right away, I was like, no, they don't know what the hell they're doing. So I, every 3 months or so, I would test my numbers, and especially the Hashimoto, the antibody numbers. And they just kept going in the right direction. They just kept coming into balance, and the Hashimoto antibodies are now like 3 something. So I don't, up over 1,000. I don't know what that means. It could have been 2,000 or 5,000. All it said was over 1,000. And now it's getting, as it gets lower, it has a very specific number. So it's 3 something. And one of them, I think that's TPO, TG is like 2 something. I can't quite recall. I'd have to look at my spreadsheet.
But your numbers down, basically. That's
right.
What you've seen.
Right. And the TSH went completely normal. It went actually better than normal. It went into optimal range, which recently went up, but only because I inserted the iodine. And I guess if you have TPO antibodies, you're not supposed to have iodine. And I had done it anyway. I didn't use a cofactor of selenium because my selenium is already high. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I did stop that. And so I am where I am. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You see, you've become a bit of an expert on the thyroid, haven't you, in your own personal situation? And we've been through your bloods together. And I think it's really interesting that you didn't realize there was a full panel you could have, and you can also have your antibodies tested. I know you do that now, and I'm hoping that people that watch this video will be inspired, if they have thyroid problems, to do a bit more investigating. That's partly why I wanted you on, actually. So I love to hear, why do you think dairy inhibits the healing of the thyroid? That's a really interesting thing for you to mention.
Well, in the different places that I was looking up on Hashimoto, almost every single one of them mentioned to get rid of dairy because dairy causes inflammation and the inflammation triggers the Hashimoto. And I mean, that was absolutely what was happening with me. I mean, and I just entered some back in recently over the holiday because I wanted to see what it would do. And it immediately filled up my sinuses. It was like I looked at my Oura ring and the sleep, it monitors my oxygen levels at night, which have been optimal right straight through. And ever since giving up dairy, because it was bad. But it was picking up on periodic breathing again. So I was like, every time I touch any kind of dairy, it would show up as a reading through the night on my ring. So I knew without a doubt that it was affecting my breathing. I mean, I knew it anyway, because I had given it up. I was doing great. And the one last thing I hadn't given up was cheddar, because the food sensitivity test had told me I had no reaction to cheddar. It was literally 0. And so I'm like, well, I'll just keep cheddar in for my first year. But last May, I decided, well, it still feels like I'm fighting my body. I'm doing all this and it's hard to lose weight. And so I'm going to just give up cheddar. And the month of May, I dropped 15 pounds, 14 or 15 pounds by giving up cheddar. And within 2 weeks of giving up the cheddar, I was off the Cpap machine. I mean, that was the last little thing to give up. And then I didn't, and I haven't been on the Cpap since. So, I mean, that tells me everything I need to know. So,
yes. Yeah, that's fascinating. So what has cleared up? So we've seen the weight loss go down and we've seen your thyroid correct and you're off the Cpap. Is there anything else?
Oh God, yeah. I got to look it up. It's a list. It's a list. Okay, let's see. My inflammation is gone, the edema and the pain that I had. I just had regular joint pain and a sciatic issue that I had resolved, but it would stay achy. And if I eat anything like with seed oils, like in a restaurant, if they cook the meat seed oils, I will feel that achiness, and it, makes you nervous if you've ever had sciatic pain. But the edema, I mean, I've told you this before. When I started this, I was so bloated and poofy. And within 2 weeks, I dropped 18 pounds of fluid. And that's how bad it was. And I think I sent you one of the pictures. It's crazy. But my liver numbers went normal. My kidney numbers went normal. All my heart, cholesterol, all that. Not that it was bad, but it's stellar now. It's just phenomenal. I have what's called eosinophilic esophagitis. And that is, you get this bubble in your throat and then you can't swallow anything. It's very painful and eventually creates a lot of phlegm and you can end up throwing up. That is pretty much gone. The only time it has affected me now is if I'm in, like if I've gone to a restaurant and it's a certain type of oil they're using to cook the meat, then I will almost feel it immediately. But other than that, I don't have episodes. Leaky gut, insulin resistance. My last time I did my fasting insulin was a 6.9. It was nice and low. And it could be lower now because that was like a few months after I'd gone pure with like very clean carnivore, no dairy, no sweeteners, no nothing. So I'd be very curious to see what it is now, if it's even lower. My gut biome had to have healed. I mean, the only way, not that I tested anything, but I wasn't able to absorb potassium. I was super hypokalemic. I couldn't absorb potassium at all. And within, I think, 4 months of carnivore, I was absorbing potassium. I mean, I was taking 5 of those huge pills a day, 7,500 milligrams of potassium a day just to keep my level normal. And it was literally when I started doing some of the fasting, I went as long as I could because you had to separate them by like 6 hours. And it should have been more, but I made it 6 hours so I could get it all in. And that, I remember telling my doctor, I says, I feel phenomenal when I'm fasting. I said, but as soon as I put the potassium in, I don't feel right. And so we lowered it by a pill, and we did that 1 pill a week for 5 weeks. And then I was off it completely. And because my body was absorbing nutrients again. And that's pretty quick, I think, you know, to get your body to be absorbing again. The fatty liver, all my liver numbers are great. Let's see, dry eye and dry mouth. I think that's called Sjogren's. I never went to try and get the diagnosis. I just knew it was bad. And that now has all resolved itself. Even my dentist said, yeah, you have no problem with saliva in your mouth. And for a while I did, trust me, it was horrible. The hair loss has stopped. Now, my whole thing now is like really I want my hair to grow better. The existing hair grows, but it's like getting all the, you know, what stopped to grow back. But it's coming along. My balance is improved. I add that to the list because it's the oddest thing. Like, even if like when I had dairy recently, my whole brain was funky. I got up and I was off kilter. I wasn't walking right. And I was like, I hadn't felt that in 2 years. And I was like, whoo. I said, it's the damn dairy. I never knew it then, but it had to cause inflammation in the brain as well. So there's so many things that it was causing within my body that I hear other people talking about. And I'm like, get rid of dairy and just do it for 30 days and see how you feel, because it's been remarkable how many things it has affected in my body. And not just the healing process of Hashimoto, but everything. I mean, especially when it makes your brain inflamed and makes you feel off kilter, that's not okay. I mean, that's just bad. Okay, let's see. A1C is 4.5. And oddly, I think my hearing is improved. I have no tests or anything for that. I just know that I hear better. And I think it's because inside my ears isn't inflamed the way they used to be. Because I used to have a hard time putting a Q-tip in my ear canal. It would be like so swollen in there that it would be hard to get one in. And now it's wide open. And I'm pretty sure that's what was causing it. The eye floaters almost gone. They're pretty much gone most of the time. Sleep apnea, absolutely gone. Off all my meds. Yep, and down 112 pounds.
Wow. But apart from that, not much. What a list. What a list. It's fantastic. And Sally, actually, that's been a revelation for me, because I don't know all of that. I know we worked together with Steak and Butter Gang, but I didn't know the list was that extensive. So it seems pretty miraculous, doesn't it? That just diet has done that much.
Yeah, that's what I think has grabbed me the most, is that I've gotten off all medicines that were supposedly helping me. And even my blood pressure, they were doing a test for something. It was something to do with the kidneys. And I had to be off it for 3 days. And they said, go right back on it when you're done. Well, in those 3 days, my blood pressure went down without it. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to go back on it. I waited, I played it day by day, and I checked my blood pressure every single day. And it kept going down, and it stayed down. And I says, well, I'm just not going to go back on this. Now, I didn't say anything to my doctor for like 3 weeks. I wanted to be sure. And I did watch it. I monitored it. I'm not dumb, you know, and I finally told her. She made me come in the office because I don't think she believed me. And then I went in, she did my blood pressure, and she was like, okay, no more blood pressure medicine. But yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
All diet.
So you just dived into carnivore. What can you remember? Did you have reservations when you started?
I didn't have reservations. My son-in-law researches everything. And he watches YouTubes on these specialists. He's really good. So when he was sending me to watch different people too. He's the one that got me started on that. But I talked to him a little bit about it, and I felt comfortable. The only thing I was nervous about was cholesterol. And I didn't want to have that battle with my doctor, but I researched enough. I knew, especially with the Hashimoto and the thyroid, at this point, I pretty much know more about that whole thing than she does. And so she trusts me on the test that I'm asking her for. And for the cholesterol, I had read Cholesterol Clarity. I knew what the numbers meant. I knew what tests to ask for if I needed them. And I guess with COVID, I hadn't gotten it checked. So it had been 2 years. And she's like, we need this past March. She's like, we need to test your cholesterol. I was scared because I knew I was okay. I wasn't scared about cholesterol being too high, because I know that that's, ridiculous. And it's not a factor in if you got cardiac disease. So, but I'm like, I didn't want to have that battle. And so she checked everything, and it was incredible. It was the most perfect it's ever been. My triglycerides gone way down. I think they're like 61, and the HDL was 52. I'd love to get that a little higher, but it's still, the ratio was fantastic. And that plus my A1C being 4.5. So I'm like, I have no issues here. There's not a problem. However, my total cholesterol was, I think, 152, 153. That scared me, because in that book, it says, if your total cholesterol is too low, you can have a heart attack there. You can have a problem. Because there was a guy on there in the book that had, his was 120. The doctor said, you're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. He's all fit. And he dropped dead of a heart attack, and I'm like, I am not that far away from that number. And then I remembered, for 2 years now, I've been taking a supplement, natural supplements, through the Melaleuca company. And one part of it is for heart health. And I was like, I wonder if that's what's keeping my cholesterol number low. And so I stopped. I completely stopped. Now I'm not going to know anything until March again. And it almost scares me, because I'm like, well, maybe now we're going to have that battle. But I don't care, because I know that I don't have the risk factors. I don't have any of that. And if the cholesterol goes up, I'll be happy, because as we all have been learning, the higher your cholesterol, the longer you live. So that was my goal. I didn't want it to stay at 150. I was like, that is too low for someone who's a carnivore and eating a heck of a lot of fat. So I'm pretty sure that whatever it was I was taking, and it had something to do with omegas and all that, I'm pretty sure that having stopped that, those numbers will probably go up. And with the increase in fat, maybe the, HDL is going to go up even more. So I'll be happy.
Yes. Yeah. So let's go back to your practicalities then. Did you say you're eating, you're doing alternate day fasting? So you're eating one meal, not eating the next day, and then eating again? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Now, the month of December, I didn't fast at all. I never thought I'd ever do that, but for some reason it was the holidays, it was the time of year and all that. And I just kept eating every single day. And it was a good thing for me, because I was on I was so rigid as far as my routine. And for a while it was like, if I didn't fast, I would gain a pound a day. So I'm like, well, so my body needs the fasting. But I found through that month, all it did was play with 5 pounds. So I'm like, I will be able to maintain when I reach my goal. And I won't have to always fast every single day, but for right now, it's healing me on a cellular level. And so I'm back into my routine now. I knew once everything was past all that, holiday stuff, that it will be like a fresh start. And so I'm back into my fasting routine every other day.
Sally, that's fabulous. And I will let the viewers in on a secret. you've had a little bit of a cold, and I don't think it comes across personally. And this is the good thing about carnivore, because even if you get the sniffles, you still operate. Your base health is so good. You can have a little sniffle and just get on with life. And I really appreciate you doing this. So I'm going to wrap up now, because I like to keep my interviews under 45 minutes, but I could talk to you all night. I really could. So maybe we'll do a follow-up, because once this has come out, I think there'll be a few questions from people, especially those with thyroid issues, asking for some more details. But have you enjoyed it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That's okay. And is there any sort of closing thoughts you want to sum up this sort of interview with?
Just one thing. It's, if anyone's trying to get the different thyroid tests, it's really, really important to know what you're talking about. So it's like, do your research the tests that you need, why you need them, what the numbers need to be, know what your numbers are, absolutely know what your numbers are, so that you know if you're progressing. I keep a spreadsheet, so I always know what my numbers are. But it's really important when you go to your doctor to know what you're talking about, because that's what convinced my doctor. She was not on board in the beginning, and she knew I knew what I was talking about, and I spoke about it with authority, and I wasn't going to accept anything different. And once she watched all my numbers go normal and go better than what they ever were, she says, I'll run the tests that you want, just don't ask me to interpret them. I'm like, don't need you to, so it's really, really important to know what you're talking about, not just to say, I want this, this, and this. They'll be like, well, why? If you can't tell them why, then you're not going to get those tests. So it's important. And using the diagnosis, if, when you find out they have no problem ordering it to see if you have Hashimoto, if you got a problem with your TSH or something. But once you have a diagnosis, that diagnosis will cover the cost of the tests. I've never had to pay for any of my tests.
Well, that's great advice. So Sally, thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to subscribe, like, and comment, as it really does help the channel. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to subscribe, like, and comment, as it really does help the channel.